Hey everybody, just Pat B here again. It's the 25th of April, 2020. Um, After getting this YouTube channel started up, I just wanted to try to maybe churn out 2 or 3 videos each day for a few days here, just to get some content up and um, get some of those memories down. And I'd call these my memoirs or whatever if you want, or video, whatever, documentation of I don't know what it is. But anyway, one of the things I thought I'd do today, even though I still do have some tours and other things to document, I thought what I would do today is just kind of go back to the beginning and how it all started, that kind of a thing. What makes a person decide that they want to be a professional saxophone player? Not always the most popular or logical choice of career, and I kind of fell into it, sort of. I guess I don't know. A lot of times I explain that it kind of chose me more than I chose it. Anyway, so to explain from the beginning, not to tell you my whole life story and have a 3-hour video, that would be bad. But I was born in Alberta, not in Calgary. I was born in Wainwright, which is the second largest training base for the Army in the country. And my dad was, I come from an Army family. My dad was in the Army. There's really no reason to live in Wainwright, I don't think, unless you're involved with the military or you're a farmer or something like that. Uh, we had left there when I was very young. My dad was posted to Ontario, a base near Clinton, Ontario, not far from the shores of Lake Huron. We were there for 2 years, 1969 and 70. In 71, he was posted back here to Alberta, to Calgary. So theoretically, I've lived in Calgary since 1971. So I was 4, and I did all my schooling here. Um, from kindergarten, grade 1 and 2 and 3, I was in Department of National Defense schools. And then in grade 4, 5, 6, I ended up changing schools to Calgary Board of Education schools. Clem Gardner Elementary is what it was called. It's now the Calgary Science School. And I'm the youngest of 4, and my oldest 2 siblings went through the Catholic board, which I would have done too, except that when I got to junior high school, my mom especially, well, both my mom and dad, but my mom especially knew that I had some musical, um, ability, and I was kind of taking to music quite a lot. So she determined that I should take myself and my older brother, who's about 2.5 years older than I, went through the Calgary Board of Education system. So I went because at the time, the music programs were stronger than in the Catholic board. So I went to Bishop Pinkham Junior High School, and that sounds like it would be a Catholic school, but it wasn't. It was a public school, like Calgary Board of Education. And then I went to Central Memorial High School, which had a strong band program when I went through. That still does, but um, the teacher, Bob Eklund, there was the one that started the school. And that's where I went for high school. And then to the University of Calgary and got my bachelor's degree there. Half of master's finished, but not finished. So, but anyway, um, so when I started out, I didn't really I didn't start to think being a musician was really a viable profession for me. Really, I mean, in grade 9 was a kind of a pivotal year for me. The teacher that I had at Bishop Pinkham at the time was very good for me to kind of push me towards what I wanted to do. And still up until that point, I had it in my mind, especially when I got to high school, that I wanted to play professional football. And my football coach in high school was an ex quarterback for the University of Calgary Dinosaurs, their football team. So he thought that I had a pretty good chance to do well on the Dino team and maybe get drafted. So that's kind of what was pursuing. Um, at the same time that I was looking at something like that, I was also playing professional organized hockey, and my whole sports career changed on a dime one night in October of 1983. Um, while playing organized hockey, I was a defenseman. I went into a corner chasing the puck, and the guy tripped me from behind, and I slid into the corner on my back. And when I hit, as the boards curve, my foot hit the curve in the boards, and my foot just pivoted that way, and the bone went like that, and I basically ripped every possible ligament off my ankle that you could possibly do. So, in the span of a few seconds, everything came to a screeching halt, including me, and I was going into that corner pretty full out too. So, needless to say, I had to have a pin put in my leg and all my ligaments sewn back on, and I was on crutches with a non-weight bearing cast for about 4 months. So, um, after all that time, after I got the cast off, my left leg, the one that wasn't broken, was like this. It was huge. And my right leg was probably like that because it just dangled there for a bunch of months, right? So, anyway, uh, I got the cast off, and I went back and I played a hockey tournament with my team. Was still going. This would have been February or March, the following February, March, and I just every time I went near a corner, I was like, "Nah, this is freaking me out." And then also, my orthopedic surgeon said, if you were to break a bone like that or your bone like that again, um, then it's possible that you'd be walking with a cast or limp for the rest of your life. And I went, "Okay, doc, I get the hint. I get it. I get it. Okay, maybe I'll try this saxophone thing. That's kind of fun." So that's kind of how that came about. So the universe kind of went pew off like that and steered me in a different direction. So I thought I'm going to pursue the saxophone thing. So I was in high school when that happened, and I started to really hit the sax even harder, kind of thing, because I always enjoyed playing that, and I always enjoyed the music thing. So, and then I started to look at studying post-secondary. So, and lucky for me, I started playing in my first semi-pro and pro big band when I was in grade 11. I was, again, talking about in one of my previous videos about, meeting the right guy at the right time. That happened for me. The guy who was directing our jazz ensemble was not my main band teacher, Bob Eklund. He brought somebody in, a fellow by the name of Dave Rice, who moved back to Toronto years ago. He was actually from Montreal and moved to Toronto, late 80s. And I think the last time I spoke to him was 1988, something like that. So he played in a semi-pro band here called the Wednesday Night Big Band. It still exists. They're still rehearsing, still playing, and I sometimes sub in the group. And the Barry sax player in that band was a member of the Army band that was stationed here, and they were going over to Europe for about 8 or 10 weeks or something. And so he decided to resign his position, and my teacher, Dave Rice, who played lead tenor in the band at the time, recommended me to play in it. So I came out to a rehearsal. They rehearsed at John Diefenbaker High School here in Calgary, and I was in grade 11. So it was pretty nerve-wracking for me because all I knew was my school stage band, right? So I get into this group that so many of the players are much more competent on their instruments and playing stylistically correct and just really they sounded really good and stuff. It wasn't something I was used to, so it was something where I really had to keep up with the Joneses kind of thing. And also, not long after that, I got into my first professional band. One of my main mentors, who was here at the time, was a trumpeter by the name of Greg Bush. And he teaches now out on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo at Vancouver Island University. He asked me to come play in his professional big band on Barrie. And all of that happening at that one time was invaluable for me. And it really taught me the whole concept behind, for you to get better, you need to be surrounded by people who are better than you. And I totally was. I was surrounded by people who were playing it definitely at a level above and beyond where I was at. I thought I did pretty well for a high school age kid, but but I get together with some of the local pros and guys who've been playing for a lot of years, and it really taught me that's an important thing, to be surrounded by people who are better than you. It makes you better. You have to rise to the occasion to be able to keep up. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I had to do that because I now became members of those groups. So I didn't want to lag back and be the weak link, right? So it was important for me to really, pull up my bootstraps, as it were, and really work hard to make that happen. So, and I think also too, that really helped kind of put the nail in the coffin for me to decide to want to go and study music post-secondary. And I did that. And it took me a long time to get my bachelor's degree. As a matter of fact, full disclosure, took me 9 years to do that because, and this is something I talk about to my students now at Ambrose University. Because when I was in university and I'd met these pros and stuff, and I was in a position where I was meeting people and they were asking me to come out and play, and I got busier on the outside of school more and more. So the busier I got, the less courses I took. So I figured it'd be better to stretch things over time. And then of course I took those 2 years off to go on all those tours that I've been talking about on these videos. So it took me a long time to get all that together, because I wanted to have my foot firmly entrenched in the local scene as much as possible and be as busy in the local scene. And this is what I tell my students at Ambrose: while you're here at university and doing your studies and stuff, you need to get out and meet people and network and get into playing opportunities and that kind of a thing. That's important. And that's what I did. I back then, I know some of you veteran Calgary musicians or musicians that have been around a while, if this gives you any idea around the time frame we're talking, I remember I would go sit in at clubs, for example, Cannery Row, Chaos Cafe, Cafe Calabash, the Beatnik, of course, the Wine Gallery in the bottom of Bankers Hall, if you remember that. I used to go and listen to people play at McQueen's upstairs, Green Street Cafe, places like this. I know for a bunch of you, you'll remember those rooms because I cut my teeth uh, in rooms like that, so to speak. And that was important. And a place like Cannery Row, for example, when I was in university, my faculty advisor, Stan Finn, played clarinet in the Dixie band that played at Cannery Row. So he's actually the one that invited me to Cannery Row the very first time. He said, "Bring your horn down." So I took my Barry down. And one of the other things I tell my students too is that, when you sit in a place, whether you're at a jam or somebody invites you to sit in, you never know who's going to be in the audience. And many times, a good handful of times, I would play, at a club or sitting in somewhere, and when I was done, I'd be putting my horn away, and somebody would walk up and say, "I've been looking for a saxophone player," and sometimes specifically a Barry sax player. Or they would say, "Do you play other horns?" And I did. But in a bunch of cases, they said, "Barry sax, that's pretty cool. Are you working next weekend?" I'd say, "Really? No, I don't know anybody. How could I be working next weekend?" So I scored a lot of gigs that way, So, and nobody really told me to do that a lot. I just did it because I wanted to. I knew I had to because, if you're not out meeting people and networking, you could be the greatest musician that your basement has ever heard, but that doesn't matter. If nobody knows who you are and then nobody gets a chance to hear you, what good is it, right? So, yeah, that was an important thing for me. So, and also my teachers would say, "Yeah, go ahead and sit in and, go and meet people." And the fact that I was in these two big bands was really helpful for me to get into or to meet people. And Greg's big band, I don't know if any of you would remember, it was called the Western Connection Big Band. This was a lot of years ago. Some of the venues we played at, there was a place on the 8th Avenue Mall called the Bank, which was like an Echoplex. I mean, you put a big band in there, it's like, I'm sure the last chord from our last tune is still ringing 30 years later, 40 years later, whatever, 35 years later. There was a place by the Telus Tower down on 6th Avenue called the Music Box that we sat in. The Penguin Pub by the Grand Theater on First Street. These are some of the venues we played at, I remember, and I don't even think they exist anymore. For you non-Calgary residents, that means nothing to you, but I'm just kind of remembering some of those places that I played. So, that's kind of how it worked for me. And everybody's story is different, but I kind of got to the point where I thought, while I'm in university, is the time for me to go out and meet people and network and try to get at least one foot entrenched in the scene so that when I graduate, I just hit the ground running. And that's important. And I tell my students now at Ambrose, and even, the students that come to the house here, that I'm your private teacher. Use me for my contacts, whatever contacts I have. That's important. I can help you get your foot into some doors. The rest is up to you once you get in there. You have to take over. It's kind of like who you know gets you there, what you know will keep you there, that kind of a thing. So anyway, that's kind of how that worked. And once I started doing those tours, and I did get some calls to play with some visiting artists coming through town. That's when I started to build my network, not just locally, but provincially, Western Canada, all of Canada, and even North America and other places in the world too. So that's really important. I think that it's as important to spend, as much time as possible, perfecting your craft on your chosen instrument, but also to spend time expanding your network and keeping it as active as possible. You'll be doing yourself a big favor if you do that. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell, in 16 minutes and 48 seconds, kind of how things went. That's like very much a Coles Notes version, but that's kind of how it worked for me to be able to make a career of this. I didn't go into this thinking I was going to make a whole boatload of money or anything like that. I just knew that I wanted to do something that when I woke up in the morning, I would look forward to doing it. And I still do. And to me, that's when I know I'm doing the right thing. And people say to me, when somebody comes up to me after playing a gig or something and says, "Oh, I really enjoyed listening to you. It was so nice to hear you play." I guess, that's when you know that you're not classified as an essential service, but in a way you are. You're doing something that actually, is contributing something to the community, and that's what I enjoy doing. Just being able to get out there and play and have fun and take what you do very seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously. That's kind of one of my mottos. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to shut up there and just want to lay some groundwork for you and give you some background. That kind of a thing. Those of you who have subscribed, you might not know, who is this guy and where does he come from? How did he get here? What's he doing? Why is he doing it? What the hell ever made him think to be a professional musician? Yeah, that's, like I say, it's not something where you make a boatload of money, but I sure love what I do. So anyway, those are all my thoughts for this one. Like I say, I've got some more road stories and gig stories and stuff coming up and so on and so forth, plus some other topics that I want to address and talk about, just to get a dialogue going or just throw them out there and let you know my thoughts on some things and stuff like that. So yeah, just my musings, as it were. So like I say, with every video, I've set up an email address and I've put them, if you're obviously watching this on YouTube, you'll see that I've put the email address down below. And if you want to, send a message and say hi or have any topic suggestions or questions or comments or anything like that, the email address is youtube@belltones.ca. So YOUTUBE at Belltones, BELLTONES.ca. Yeah, so that's that. And feel free to send me a message if you like. And if not, I'll see you on the next video, whenever that is. If so, I'll get back to you as soon as you send something to me. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye now.